remember the first movie? How it came out? That frenzy around something happening, police cars and SWAT vans outside theaters, and metal detectors inside when going in. That was a very interesting time. 5 years have passed since that movie, and I thought we would never see a sequel to Joker. And yet here we are with Folie, Deux, which is the sequel releasing exactly 5 years after the first one. In this one, Arthur Fleck, played once again by Joaquin Phoenix, has been at Arkham for 2 years and is awaiting his trial, where it'll be decided what to do in terms of a judgment. At this point of time, he meets Harleen Quinzel, played by Lady Gaga, who he strikes up a relationship with, as the two of them seem to get along and have some things in common, and it leads to stuff eventually happening that's a bit crazy. And that's all I'm really going to say about the plot synopsis, because I don't want to give too many details away. I don't want to spoil too much for you guys. You guys just go see the movie for yourself. The first one was a movie that I thought was very well done. In fact, I gave it a 10 out of 10, and it was even in my top movies of the year. I thought they did a phenomenal job with that character study and, really showcasing what was a different version of the Joker. Sure, you can call it the taxi driver of DC movies or the king of comedy of DC movies, but I thought they did a very good job with that, despite a movie that was pretty divisive overall for a lot of people. Going into the sequel, I had no idea what to expect. And when I heard that they were doing it, the first thing that I thought of was, I don't know if they should do it, but let's see how it'll play out. And having seen the sequel, I'm in a somewhat similar position to the first one in that I'm sort of processing it as I'm recording this video. I am trying to figure out what to say about it because there's a lot of thoughts on Folie, Deux, which are circling around. There's a lot of things that I think carry forward from the first movie that I think are positives for this one too. But there are also choices and decisions that Folie, Deux makes that I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about them. And I feel like that's going to be a very common thing that happens with audiences who see this movie. When I walked out of it today, a lot of people really liked it. I also heard people say they hated it. And that includes my friend who I went and saw it with. And I think every reaction to Folie, Deux is a valid reaction, because it's a movie that makes choices that will either gel with everybody or not gel with anyone. But the one thing that I will say about it is I respect the movie for going for those choices. It's a very unconventional sequel. It doesn't try to do the exact same movie all over again like the first one did. It takes a lot of risky decisions, and it commits to those risky decisions. And I do respect that Todd Phillips and Scott Silver, who wrote the script with him, did a really good job of, making sure the movie stuck to its guns in that sense. This is a very different sequel, not just in terms of the way it's told in terms of its story, but also in how it's telling that story. For instance, this one is a bit of a pseudo-musical. There are moments where Joker and Lee are dancing along and singing songs together. And those moments give the movie a lot of life. They're beautifully shot and they're very well choreographed. And I will talk more about that in a second. But once again, one of the best parts of this is the acting. Joaquin Phoenix won an Oscar for the first movie. Rightfully so, he did an excellent job. And once again, he does an excellent job. He is phenomenal in the role. And I think in this one, he does some things even better than the first movie, because you've got a little more time to sort of be with him as Joker now. And there are some scenes that happen as a result of that where you really get to see him, take on that personality and do some incredible work with it. And I thought it led to some really great scenes and some more complex moments with Arthur compared to the first movie. I thought Lady Gaga as Lee was excellent as well. I thought she worked off of Arthur really, really well, and there were some great moments with her too, especially as she's getting to know him more and that romance is building between them. Obviously, Lady Gaga is a phenomenal singer. This is known. Once again, you get a chance to, get some of that talent represented in the movie as, she sings along and dances to those sequences. She does an excellent job there. And even the supporting cast surrounding them, like Brendan Gleeson or Catherine Keener or Harry Lottie, they're all really, really good in the roles that they're playing. This is a movie that very much does have a slew of very good performances. I already mentioned that the musical sequences look great, and that's because the cinematographer from the first movie, Lawrence Sher, is back for this one. And he once again makes a visually dazzling flick. This looks spectacular. The production design, the sets, those moments where you're riding around in the city of Gotham, bringing that, character to life. It's all wonderfully represented, and it has some of the best visuals of the year. Gorgeous movie through and through. Once again, it has a score from Hildur Gudnadottir, who does an excellent job with the music. Once again, a phenomenal score. A lot of themes carried forward from the first one into this one, and couple that with the musical numbers, it makes for a very rich soundtrack, one that I'm actually looking forward to owning. All of this is in service, of course, of the main story and the things that they're doing. And here's where things get divisive, because a lot of the decisions that Folie Deux makes, on one hand, I think are really good. And I think it does some things that are natural successors to the idea of the first movie's, themes and concepts. That's what I would expect them to do if they made a sequel. It's that kind of thing. But at the same time, I also think it makes some choices which I don't know if I'm a fan of. And so it sort of leaves you in a perplexed state by the time you're done with it. Like, when I walked out of the movie, I remember someone asked me, like, what'd you think of the movie? And I had no answer. I said, you cannot ask me this right now, because I'm still trying to figure it out as, I'm walking right now. Like, I'm gonna need a minute. And even as I'm talking about it live on camera, I need to think about it. And it's one of those movies that I think warrants all kinds of reactions to it. If you walk out of this movie saying it's a 5 out of 5, makes sense. If you walk out of it saying it's a 1 out of 5, makes sense. It's one of those movies where all the absolute reactions, but also the reactions that are in the middle, are all completely valid. And I think that's one of the reasons I respect the movie even more. It does commit to taking the chances that would lead to such reactions. And I'm curious what happens down the line more than anything else, because right now it's easy to talk about it in this moment and say what has to be said about it. But as time goes on, I'm curious just myself how I'm gonna feel about it. Because like I said, I'm processing it right now. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly to make of everything. I like a lot of the choices, but I also think some things could have had a little bit more focus and a little bit more attention given to make them really feel like they land as well as they could. Or maybe they did, and I missed it on this viewing. Maybe the second viewing will help with that. I will say that is one of the issues that I have, though, compared to the first movie. I think it's not as finely structured. I think there are aspects of it that do lose focus, like especially with Lee, which I think could have been done a little bit better. Some more fine, pacing would have helped with that, which I do think is better in the first movie as well. I think this movie does drag a little bit and stretch out some of those moments, especially in the second act. It feels like it goes on a little longer than it needs to. And while those are issues that do prevail the entire movie, I do think that it leads to some compelling storylines. But I can also understand why, like I said, some would call it disappointing. And that's kind of where I am right now. I'm in that position where there's a lot I like about Folie Deux. There's also some stuff that I think needs work. But I also think this is a moment of time. So who knows, maybe as I think about it more, once I see the movie again, I'll have a few more things put into perspective. And I'm curious to see how those second viewings are going to hold up in the time that is to come. As it stands right now, there's a lot I like about it, and there's a lot that is still being mulled over, but I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say about it as opening weekend starts up and how those reviews are going to come in, because I feel like the reactions are about to be very interesting to it. It's a bold movie. It makes some very, big decisions, and I'm looking forward to hearing all of those thoughts from you guys. Which is why it saddens me to say I'm not gonna give you a grade right now. I would love to. I mean, the first one I ended up giving something. Over here, it's gonna take me a bit. I'm gonna take a little bit, but I am going to do a spoiler review because I want to talk a little bit more about this movie and what else happens in it, and I will do that spoiler review once the movie does drop. So look forward to that, where I'll get into some more things regarding the entire, story and those big decisions. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video up until now. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. And remember, that's